Morning, everyone.
Morning, John. It's here.
Good morning.
Here we go.
Uh-oh, can't hear. Talk, people.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Over hurdle number one. Okay, say cheese, because I'm gonna take a picture.
Side up. Really?
Let's do it. Come on, ready? All right, 1, 2, 3. All right.
All right, now we're official.
We're official. I'm putting that on LinkedIn and everywhere right now. So just oh, yay.
Just to check right now, Brittany, can you make sure you can share your screen and your audio? I have it set to only hosts can share, but since I just made you all co-hosts, you should have it. I just want to check that that's right.
And just Brittany, or do I need to do that too?
You can all check, but as long as Brittany can, you all have the same co-host. Okay, great.
Okay.
Great.
Can I check as well, John? Because
Yep.
Saida wants me to do logistics. So yes, I want this preference. Saida wants me to do logistics. Had to preface that.
Y'all can yell at me as much as you want.
You guys see that?
Excellent. Yep.
Okay, great.
Hey, John, should Ari have this link?
She should. I sent
Okay.
it yesterday. If you want to just double check.
I'm gonna go ahead and do that.
Irene.
You'll get it.
Irene. Okay. Did I say it right? Irene?
Yes.
Irene.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. I was not able to put, like, I had this beautiful vision of putting you and Carol on the website with the stuff, and I just I
It's okay.
couldn't get to
No
it.
worries.
I
I
couldn't
know.
get to it. So I can add it definitely before today is over, but I wanted to get it just up everything perfect. And
Okay.
yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah. Good morning. I don't think folks can see me. Oh, it's Carl. He's on the other side.
He's on the attend. Yeah.
Yeah, it's because you're in the
There he is.
audience, Carl.
Okay, he got promoted.
So when Joy is on, can she see us?
So all of us who are at the top banner right now, we're all on as panelists. So
Mhm.
Joy will be able to see us, but I'm planning on just going on mute and pulling my audio down, so it's just her. But all of us, so this group will have the panelist / co-host capabilities, so we can pop on, put our video on, talk anytime. But otherwise, like whenever anyone's presenting, then I'm planning on just sort of like shutting mine off, so we're not a distraction at the top.
Okay, yeah, because she prefers that she see people
Oh, okay. Oh, great. Then we'll stay.
with us. So is there a way to just kind of highlight her so that when she does talk, like the other people will see her, but she can see us?
Yeah. So if we keep our videos on, we'll stay up top, but as long as none of us speak or make a sound, then it will stay focused on her.
Okay. Okay.
So make sure everybody knows that when they come on, they have to mute So as soon as somebody's speaking, make sure we remind everybody to mute their audio because it'll pick up whoever's speaking.
Okay.
And good morning. Michael is from our team. He is the one who really has been making all of this happen back and guiding me and our team through the process. So Michael's here to ensure that there are no bumps along the way, but
my
can
gosh.
support if there are. So
Good
thank you,
morning,
Michael.
everyone.
Oh, fantastic.
morning.
Thank you.
No
Woo.
worries.
Yeah. So I don't know if you got a chance to see the website, but I brought your links to life as much as I could.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, no, this was definitely a group effort for sure. What would have happened if you all weren't here? I don't know what we would have done.
Is there a final run of show?
There is, let me see, I don't have your email. John, I can send you, or
Send it to-
maybe just the link. Do you want to send them the link or like the booklet that I gave yesterday?
I'll send the link.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
John, are we going live in 1 minute?
Yeah, whenever, I think Brittany, whenever you're ready to pull up the music, I think the plan right around now is we can sort of kick it into high gear.
Is Ari here?
I just forwarded her the link, so she should be coming on pretty soon.
I'm here.
Oh,
there she
hey.
is.
Yay! Great. And Gato is here too. Fantastic.
And John, you sent me the link the music in a link, or you want me to send you with the music that I shared with you? That's why my audio needs to be on.
Oh, hold on.
So Gato, I am going to introduce you right after the music plays so that you can just start talking about the thing. Now, do you need to share screens? Because I also took those two things and I put it in the two pictures showing how to do it. And I put it in the program that Earl is going to be showing throughout, like he's going to show the sponsors. So Earl, can you show that? Would you like him to show that, Caro?
Good morning, everybody. I'm so grateful to be here. I think, yeah, if it's that screen that has the pictures of how to access it on the computer and on the phone, that's fine. And then I'll just do the introduction on my end.
Okay, super. And then we have a lot that we weren't expecting in the program. So if you could keep it concise as much as possible
Yeah.
without losing the essence of what needs to be said, just know that that we're trying to stay on a time crunch.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I had a question and it just slipped my mind. Never mind.
But just when it comes to you, just spit it out.
Okay, so I can go ahead and play the music. Would you guys like for me to start that now?
Go for it.
Okay, great. 1 second.
Really quick. So I'm showing the website and the program as Carol is actually giving instructions. Is that correct?
Yeah, so as she is showing, as she's talking about the translations, you just go to that page in the booklet.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
And
got it.
then really last thing, when I introduce us, the team, I don't need to say Saida, Carl, Earl. It's just the coordinating team to help make this happen. And then I'll say our organization's names. Is that okay?
Yes, which so you'll just say the
Organic Oneness, I have it written down. Organic Oneness, the Office of Family and Community Engagement, University of Chicago Education Lab, and UCAN, and others.
Yeah, and and a multitude of others.
Multitude, a plethora. Okay, great. Let me go ahead and start the,
An abundance of
There we go. I will not exclude them. Okay. Can you guys hear?
Yes. Oh, not the music. If you're playing music. we're
It
not-
should,
Let the music play.
you should hear him speaking.
So is it visual and audio or just visual? I mean, or just audio?
It's visual and audio.
Oh, okay.
So I can, let me go ahead and share the screen real quick.
Because we're technically in 2 minutes, right? People are gonna start logging on.
Yeah. Hmm.
Oh, copy of the program. Okay, let me see.
Okay. Share my screen.
And is everyone okay if I'm gonna do the land acknowledgement? And I'm gonna call on our ancestors to come into the room and ask people to put names. And then a short prayer. Is everyone okay with that? Because okay, wait, there's a lot happening. Could you just drop a link to the chat?
Okay.
Don't hear anything.
Oh, that's okay. Can you guys hear?
No. Reshare it, and then at the bottom, there is like 2 things.
I'll reshare it.
Yeah, and then at the bottom, there's an audio. There are 2 buttons that you have to press when you're sharing.
Okay.
Irene, right? Irene? Irene.
Yes.
Irene and Caro.
So I've gone ahead and shared it with you, John, because I definitely cannot find out how to include the audio on my
Okay.
end. Thank you.
Yep, I'm gonna start it now.
Hi, my name is Jahari Stampley, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you to you, Ken, and Jazz Institute for having me, and I hope you enjoy.
That was so beautiful. Thank you to the Jazz Institute and UCAN, who has been one of our partners for the Be the Healing Conference. And we were just listening to the blessings from Jahari Stampley's wonderful performance. Before we officially begin the program, I would like to introduce everyone to Carol and Irene. I'm two new friends that I'm so excited to meet, because now they will be on this journey with us forever, because they are helping with translations and interpretations. So I am inviting Carol to talk about language justice for a quick moment, and to help everyone get on the proper language option that is before you. So Carol, if you can join us, are you here? There you are.
Yeah, buenos días todos, buenos días todas. Good morning, everybody. Saida acaba de dar una bienvenida en inglés que la va a volver a dar en un momento cuando esté el proceso, los servicios de interpretación prendidos. Mi nombre es Carol y junto con Irene estaremos interpretando en inglés y español durante la sesión de hoy. My name is Carol, and along with Irene, we'll be interpreting in English and Spanish during today's session. Primero que nada, queremos agradecer a los organizadores de este evento por su compromiso a la justicia del lenguaje y al crear espacios multilingües. First of all, we would like to thank the organizers of this event for their commitment to language justice and to creating multilingual spaces. Reconocemos que no pueden estar presentes todos nuestros idiomas a diferentes causas del desplazamiento y los efectos continuos de la colonización. Honramos estos idiomas nativos, dándoles este espacio y reconociendo que todos estamos en tierras indígenas y en estos momentos yo soy los territorios ancestrales de los Ixtocná Carrizo Comecrudo, conocido como lo que ahora es Texas. We recognize that not all of our languages can be present due to different causes of displacement and the ongoing effects of colonization. We honor these native languages, giving them this space and recognizing that we are all an indigenous land. Currently, I am on the territory of the Ixtocná, or the Carrizo Comecrudo, in what is now known as Texas. el crear espacios multilingües no es solo responsabilidad de los intérpretes, sino de todas las personas presentes. Por eso les estamos dando compartir algunas pautas para que nos ayuden. Creating multilingual spaces is not only the responsibility of the interpreters, but of everyone here. That is why we'll be sharing some guidelines so you can help us out. Para los presentadores de hoy, pueden ayudar hablando a ritmo moderado, voz alta y claramente. Si necesitamos que hablen más despacio o más fuerte, les dejaremos saber a través del chat. For those presenting today, you can help by speaking at a moderate pace, loudly and clearly. If we need you to speak more slowly or loudly, we will let you know through the chat. Para todos los participantes, por favor no sufran en silencio. Si la interpretación no está funcionando o están teniendo otras dificultades técnicas, déjenos saber en el chat para poder asistirles. For all participants, please don't suffer in silence. If the interpretation is not working or you are having other technical difficulties, please let us know in the chat so we can help you. En un momento se encenderá la interpretación de Zoom y verán un globo en la parte baja de sus pantallas con un mensaje sobre la interpretación de idiomas. In a moment, the interpretation will be turned on, and you'll see a globe in the lower part of your screen with a message about language interpretation. Hagan clic en el globo y elijan el idioma en el que les gustaría participar y escuchar durante esa sesión. Click on the globe and select the language in which you'd like to participate and listen during this session. It is important that if you are a monolingual English speaker, you still pick the interpretation function and choose English in case the vice versa interpretation needs to happen. Es importante que todos elijan un idioma para que puedan escuchar la interpretación. Y si necesitan algo, por favor, déjenos saber en el chat.
Okay. So we're all set to keep moving forward. Thank you, Caro. For this, I'm super excited, and hopefully we will keep adding languages as we evolve as an organization and the more partners we have at the table. So thank you everyone for joining us for the Be the Healing, the annual Be the Healing conference in Chicago with Dr. Joy DeGruy and many, many exciting speakers from Chicago and some other cities in the nation and some other places across the globe. So you'll be able to see the speaker series online. And Earl will talk about that shortly. But my name is Saida Segovia Taylor, if you don't know me, and I'm the founder and executive director of Organic Oneness. And we are part of the convening team of this conference. So thank you again for joining us today. You are in for a treat. And if your people are not on board, tell them to join in now. Send them the Eventbrite link and everything that you have. So in terms of respecting our land and acknowledging everyone, I would like to do a land acknowledgement. We are located near the confluences of several waterways. We sit on land that intersects with the Aboriginal homelands of several tribal nations, the Council of the Three Fires, the Potawatomi, Odawa, and Ojibwe nations, along with many nations that call the region of Northwest Illinois home. Indigenous people continue to live in this area and celebrate their traditional teachings and life ways. Today, Chicago is home to one of the largest urban Indigenous communities in the United States, and this land remains an important place for Indigenous peoples. As a Chicago organization and as institutions and people that reside in Chicago, it is our responsibility to acknowledge this historical context and build reciprocal relationships with the tribal nations on whose land we are situated. I would also like to take this opportunity to welcome in all of our ancestors that are in the kingdom on high and ask for their guidance as we come together today. If you would like to put a name of your loved one that has passed on, please put their name in the chat. Please say their name out loud. Please call on their energy so that we can feel their presence and help us move forward the way we're supposed to as humanity. I would like to also say a prayer to bring in all the energy because it's hard right now. So that's why we're doing this conference, and together we can get through this. My God, oh my God, unite the hearts of thy servants and reveal to them thy great purpose. May they follow thy commandments and abide in thy law. Help them, O God, in their endeavor, and grant them strength to serve thee. O God, leave them not to themselves, but guide their steps by the light of thy knowledge, and cheer their hearts by thy love. Verily, thou art their helper and their Lord. So, thank you everyone for putting names in the chat. Please continue. So the reason why we're here for the next 2 days, our mission is to help build our capacity and gain tools for personal growth, community building, and institutional transformation to find ways to heal together. If we want to unlock new ways of being together, it will require courage, justice, patience, forgiveness, and love. You all were chosen to live during this time period because you have special gifts that can help us get through the challenges that we're facing. So please use those gifts, develop your gifts, refine your gifts, teach your gifts, share your gifts, because it's needed. So you know who I am, you know why we're here, and I'd like to pass it along to Brittany and Earl, who have been wonderful in this, along with John and many others in this journey to make this happen. So I'm excited to hand it over to Brittany, and then she'll pass it on to Earl.
Great. Welcome, everyone, and thank you, Saida, so very much for the land acknowledgement. As Saida mentioned, my name is Brittany Sprouls. I am a West Side Chicago native, and I work at UCAN and oversee the Peace Hub initiative. I want to first start by just acknowledging the planning committee that made this conference possible. And I'm going to read off a couple of organizations, but I do want to state that this was a collaborative, and there were so many organizations that made this possible, in addition to the ones that I'm going to read. So just an acknowledgement to Organic Oneness, CPS's Office of Family and Community Engagement, UFC's Office of Education Lab, as well as UCAN's Peace Hub. Again, so many partners were a part of making this day or these 2 days possible. I also want to acknowledge for those of you guys who have signed up for CEUs for the conference. Like the past, we are not able to meet in person. So what we want you to do to ensure that you receive your CEU credits is every session of the conference, if you can go ahead and plug your name into the chat box. If you have problems with doing that, there will be someone in those sessions that will be able to help you out with that. We want you to plug your names into the chat box for every session of the conference. So this would be one of them. And you'd plug your names in, and by your name, you would just put CEU. And then UCAN will be sure to track that and reference that and send you your certificates very shortly after this conference. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Earl. Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us for this incredible event. As Brittany has already stated, we have done so much planning on every minute of the last few months to make sure that the experience is not only rewarding, but also encouraging for you, but also in the midst of it, you also experience a little bit of healing as well. So thank you guys so much for being a part of it. What I'm going to do is share with you just a program that you guys should have received. This program gives a layout of not only what we will be doing throughout the conference, but also highlighting our keynote speakers, which we look forward to hearing from in the next couple of days. Also, a letter that Saida beautifully written about what we plan to do within the actual conference as well as the language justice that we just went over. Also, the norms and expectations we will go over shortly after I provide some more logistics for you. Not only that, in the program, you'll have a few other keynotes, such as the daily event in terms of the programming of the actual event each day. Also, as well as what we hope to do in the afternoon sessions, which are the breakout sessions. So for those who need more clarity, in the morning sessions, we will have, of course, Dr. Joy DeGruy and various other speakers that represent national as well as local leadership as well to talk about subjects that we have moving forward. In the afternoon sessions will be breakout sessions where we have an incredible host of different breakout speakers that highlight everything from literally growing generational wealth all the way to providing mindfulness and healing for you individually as providers, caregivers, educators, as well as our youth that are joining us in this conference as well. So we look forward to seeing those speakers. After the conference, you'll also see that we'll have in the afternoon lunch, if you those who can make it. We have one of our very own from Power 92. We have Hot Rod, Roderick Washington, who's going to do a kind of a lunch session for us. So a little bit of a pick me up on Friday, if you guys can join us, as well as followed by various other speakers from various other breakout speakers, as well as community conversations that we're having on Friday, which we hope that you'll be a part of. All of that information should be provided for in the program, as well as the link I will show you as it relates to the actual conference. And lastly, for the program, you'll see, as Brittany already mentioned, that we have a host of different partnerships and sponsors that has made this event possible. Of course, as you can see in the program, to get a full detailed list of all the actual sponsors and partners, please look at the program to get that list more in depth. Lastly, I will going to show you actually the website itself. So if you guys have registered for the event, you should have got access to the Organic Oneness website by our very own executive director herself, Saida Taylor. And in that actual website, you'll see that there will be a Be the Healing tab. And in the Be the Healing tab, there should be a conference 2021. If you click on that conference, then you should have been supplied with the password. You'll go down and you see a list of different functions as well as links that are all connected to this particular tab within the website, meaning the links that you need regarding the main sessions, as well as partners that I've also mentioned, as well as all the links related to the breakout sessions for every single day, from Thursday afternoon all the way to Friday afternoon as well. And of course, the links to the closing remarks that will be at the end of each day. We'll also have a listing of also the upcoming schedule for Friday as well. So once again, if you need any information, you should have been supplied that through your email, also with the password to access not only the website, but also the program as well. So we thank you so much for allowing us to be with you. A couple other points and I'll hand it right back to Saida. Also understand and realize that in the midst of that, we also will have these various breakout sessions in the afternoon, and they're scheduled for 45 minutes. Some of our presenters may end a couple minutes early to give you time to transition, take a breath, take a breather, and go to your next session. Also, wanted to also acknowledge the fact that in the midst of that, we also have a chat function that a lot of you guys have already utilized. We encourage you to utilize the chat function. Give your feedback, give your thoughts, give your encouragement, give your kudos, because we will all be recorded so that we are able to move forward as we need to within the conference. Once again, thank you so much for being here with us, and I'll pass it back over to our trustee leader, Saida Taylor.
Thanks. I always like being in the limelight, but it is going to Brittany so that she can introduce us to our wonderful MC and move us along, because I see that our first speaker is getting ready.
All right, it is with a great honor that I will present to you guys Ari Collins. She is a MICFA, not MICFA, I do apologize. Ari is a UCAN alumna. She also still is pretty involved in UCAN's programming. She is a recipient of UCAN's 2020 Leadership Award. I have the pleasure of being able to meet her through this experience, but I am happy that you guys have the pleasure of having Ari as your MC for today as well as tomorrow. I think it is important to have young people serve in roles of leadership, especially in conferences like this one. And so it is with nothing but great pleasure that I introduce Ari Collins, Chicago West Side native, UCAN alumna. And again, she's still involved in many of our programs at UCAN. Ari Collins.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ariana Collins, as Brittany mentioned, and I am a UCAN alum as well as the 2020 Youth Leadership Award winner. So I'm going to be your MC for today's event. So let's just get started. As we get into today's amazing event, where we can all learn a little more outside of ourselves and about ourselves, it is important to remember a couple norms I would like to go over in order to effectively take from today's event. So first, let's make sure we're 100% present and leaving the thoughts and distractions from outside this conference outside of it, and presume welcome to new faces, thoughts, ideas, and realities. Let's secondly, make sure we're listening deeply to each speaker, meaning the feelings behind the words, not just the words themselves. During the conference, there will be times where you will have the opportunity, as Earl mentioned, to break off into break groups, and it's important to remember that sharing is greatly appreciated, but it is not forced upon you. And lastly, we are not here to fix or set anyone or anything straight, but rather to listen to understand ourselves and one another as well as our journeys. Suspend judgment, remove assumptions, speak your truth, and respect silence after you or someone has spoken to receive what was said properly. Respect the confidentiality of what could be shared, and when you find yourself disagreeing or posing judgment, turn to wonder and ask yourself what brought you to that place of thinking. Now, as we begin, I would like to first introduce our next speaker, Dr. Marie Swinney, a Chicago Public School Chief Equity Officer who is responsible for moving us closer to achieving educational equity, which is valued in the CPS system. So.
Well, thank you for that beautiful welcome, Ms. Collins. Congratulations on your award. This is so dope to be here this morning. This is probably one of the few places where I feel like it's comfortable to have a cup of coffee while I speak, and just really make some beautiful connections with all of the beautiful souls in here. Thank you to Ms. Saida Segovia Taylor for your dedication to supporting people on their healing journey. It is not a small task to give oneself over to what's important for folks to know about healing. I'm sorry, you're getting to see my presentation before I even started. That to attend a healing is a big deal. Yesterday was the anniversary of India Martin's killing. And she was a former student of mine when I was a principal at Tilden. And she was killed by another student from another school. That was probably one of the hardest days of my 20 years of being in public education. And I also recognize that interpersonal violence is only an extension of state violence, because the history of death in our country and the lynching of Black people changes form and continues to change form over 400 years. So when I think about healing, I'm thinking about systems, I'm thinking about people, I'm thinking about myself, I'm thinking about the ways in which I process things to move forward. And so to start my morning with you all helps me to recenter myself again in a space that helps me to be the best leader I can as a systems leader who believes that educational equity is possible, who believes that systems can be changed forever, and is committed to that systematic work. So thank you to every single person who's showing up this morning, to Dr. DeGroot, to just every U of C face, CPS, everyone. I am really thankful and grateful. I don't take these opportunities for granted. Many of you I know are just at home. You know, normally we would be in a space together, we would be shaking hands, waving, we would be finding some ways to connect. So as Ms. Collins has directed us, how do we give our full selves to this moment? How do we center in paying attention and being alert and aware when we know there's lots going on around us? So thank you for that attempt. And I appreciate all of you and I hope that you get what you need, not only in what I say that it helps you, but also in what others are saying in this space. I want to take a moment to recognize that when we talk about healing in the city of Chicago, we have to think about what is the history. James Baldwin has always reminded us that we are trapped in history and history is trapped within us. In some spaces, when I hear the word healing, and even when I talk about it, I'm referring to my sort of emotions, my wellness, my thinking. But for healing, when we think about really healing, and as we heard earlier, as we understand systems of oppression and colonization, healing is a journey of systems correction. Healing is a journey of reimagining what the world could be like. Healing requires reallocation or defunding or moving things in order to correct historical wrongs. And we know in the city of Chicago, there is a lot of racial history. There is a lot of beautiful spots of resistance. There are moments of strength and power. And there are moments of people being moved around the city in ways that they could not control. And we know, even in our current context, as we think about Adam Toledo, Mr. Alvarez, Mr. Floyd, Ms. Taylor, all of these beautiful souls that are no longer with us because of state violence, we have some work to do. So as I think about healing for myself as a Black man in public education, as a person who is working in systems to support the transformation of Chicago public schools, since Dr. Jackson became our chief executive officer in December of 2017, and said that we as a district will commit to equity and to racial equity. I understand that I am a part of the system, and I understand that I'm a Black man who is experiencing life. And that creates sometimes some beauty and some turmoil for me. So when I think about healing, I just want to invite all of us to know we are all in this together and we're all playing different roles. Here's an extension of what you saw. So you saw history. UIC has produced information, a data set, index that helps us to see the economic hardships that different communities are experiencing. And essentially in this map of Chicago, the darker the red, the greater the disparity. So there are some communities that have been historically underserved by multiple systems, municipalities, education, historic disinvestment that we know we have to continue to do our work for and with. I also raise this because I will say that you might find that as people of color, as Black people or white people, our work might be different. And what I say is those most impacted who believe that systems should change, and rightfully so, should hold all of us accountable, those of us who have power to transform these systems. While at the same time, I will also say to our white allies who push up against systems, it is also important that you also address interpersonal relationships where racism and racist acts and microaggressions continue to live. So I invite all of us into a space of recognizing that there's individual work to do, interpersonal work to do in our relationships, institutional, looking at policies and practices, and structural. What are the things that seem to be built into the fabric of who we are? I remind us that Black lives matter. And I say to us, one of the big challenges at the end of the day is how do we make sure that healing happens at the systems level and begins to show itself in the way we engage with young people and the way we structure our schools to create a greater sense of belonging so that we begin to interrupt the pipeline of dropout that we created in American education, that we begin to interrupt all of the things that cause our children to leave or that cause our children to resist. All of those things must be transformed. And that is the work of us in Chicago Public Schools. That is your work as you might see it. That is my work. And so what I say to each of us is, while we're in productivity and we're trying to solve all the life's problems, I invite us into a space that the National Equity Project reminds me of, is to think about what does it mean to practice self-care and self-awareness, to attend the healing of ourselves and our community, to focus on human values, to build relational trust, and to recognize oppression. So I say to you, self-care isn't selfish. Sometimes when I find that a meeting is canceled, I run to my emails to do work. I am learning to spend that time sitting, thinking, resting, and opening my mind. Miss Audre Lorde reminds me that caring for myself is not self-indulgent, but it's self-preservation. And in that self-preservation, that is an act of political warfare. That means over the weekends, I need to stop working. And thank you, Saida, for always reminding me that I need to do that. My new philosophy right now is that I have to have 2 sleep cycles without work. That means if I close my laptop on a Friday, I cannot open it again until Sunday, so that my body gets to rest, I get to breathe for a day, and I get to rest, and then I get to enter back in. And I find that I'm actually able to do more and greater and better work. So I invite you just to take a breath with me. Just take a moment. Inhale. Exhale. Let's do that again. Inhale. Exhale. If you put in breathing gifts, breathing plus GIF in Google, you'll get a lot of these. I sometimes just pull them up to help me breathe and help me to pause. The CPS Office of Equity that I am grateful to lead developed a framework to help advance the work in Chicago Public Schools around equity, racial equity. And our core belief is that we have to set high universal goals for everyone and then figure out what needs to be disrupted or put in place to get there. And we do that through an equity lens. Liberatory thinking is about mindsets, inclusive partnerships about relationships. Resource equity is about resource allocation and need, and fair policies and systems is how do we ensure that some policies don't benefit some and burden others. I won't spend time in that universe today. I really want to take a moment to talk about the Healing Centered Framework and the way Chicago Public Schools is approaching this work as we, I will say, segue out of COVID, not all of the impact of COVID, but begin to move away a little bit from the virus itself. While we see ongoing killing of Black people by police officers, while we see the impact of interpersonal violence as an extension of state violence, while we see that all of this, and let me clarify one thing. When I say state violence, I'm not just talking about murder and death. I'm talking about the ways in which systems have removed and has never provided supports for people that are causing people to do some of the things that we see that are playing out in our interpersonal relationships as people of color, as low-income families, in ways in which we see systematic lockout of opportunity that we're all trying to disrupt. When we made a commitment to equity, we also knew that it wasn't just about like, how do we move money and change policy? It was about how do we, like I said earlier, attend to the humans? How do we attend to the needs of our people within the district? Here's what we know about trauma. Trauma impacts the way we learn. For example, if I am having bad experiences or experiences as a young person that it's harder for me to process or harder for me to understand what's happening in the world around me. Why are these things happening in my family or in my relationships? Why don't we have enough money? It is much harder for me to sit and concentrate in classrooms to think about what's in front of me, the books I need to read, and the texts that I begin to take up. As an adult, it leads to multiple things. Yesterday, I went to a chiropractor. I recently went to my dentist, and my dentist told me, he said, Maurice, I need you to get a mouth guard because you are grinding your teeth. This is the 3rd time that he has said that, and he's pushing me on getting a mouth guard, so I'm getting one. But that means that I'm holding stress within my body, that my teeth are beginning to shave down. And I notice on a particular tooth, the difference in where I was before COVID and where I am now. So that says that the trauma or the things that I am taking on is impacting me in ways that might not show up in my interpersonal interactions and might actually show up in my body. And then we also know that trauma can be passed down. One of the things that my father told me before he died, he said, life was great until crack hit the streets. I'm originally from New Orleans, and I remember watching my parents snort cocaine before I knew what that was. And I also remember the times that we would eat breakfast together on Sundays and watch TV, watch Kung Fu, and like wrestle and like have a great time with my family. All of those times begin to diminish as things begin to shift. So if we know that if we want young people to live their best lives and be their best selves, we have work to do. And Chicago Public Schools is happy and joyful, honestly, in that we get the opportunity to take that on. Our CEO, Dr. Jackson, was very clear that it is our purpose to support all students, particularly Black students and Latinx students who are farthest from opportunity, paying attention to our smaller indigenous populations to make sure that we're doing our best work for them. So we think about trauma mitigation to mitigate the effects within the system by helping all of us have stronger, better, stable relationships, creating safe and supportive community, and providing targeted resources and intervention. And as we begin to shop the framework around or let people see it, there was a lot of feedback that helped to inform what we have in front of us. And so we know that there is support and learning for all staff. We know that we have to connect and build stronger allyships and relationships with families, caregivers, and community-based organizations. We know that we have to pay attention not only to provide a service for our student, but create more space of power sharing with young people, creating space for student agency and student participation, because they actually know much more than I think we as adults give them credit for. And as you can see, there are multiple groups within the city of Chicago, like Good Kids Mad City, I'm sorry, I'm messing up their name, but Shy Children Pandemic Response Team, who have created a peace book, right? So there is learning and energy and power behind that, and we need to create space for young people to be their own agents of their own healing and wellness, but also taking on the responsibility of systems transformation. So a lot of this was engaged, we engaged stakeholders, we created 5 dimensions, and we rooted in equity. And so the components are pretty simple: as education awareness, what do we need to learn together in order to be together? Skills and strategies, how do we take that information, our learning and being, to do the right things, to implement the right practices, to begin to build the right culture and climate in every school, putting the right resources and people and programs in place, and then understand what it means to respond in times of crisis. And as a former neighborhood school principal, whose school at one point had the highest students living in temporary living situations or student experiencing homelessness, I had the highest rate, highest diverse learner rate. My school and I recognized that we needed to move away from just having trauma-informed practices to becoming a cultivating, healing-centered way of ensuring our young people feel welcomed in our school, feel supported by us, and created space to give them the right resources and supports that they need. So this work is very dear and personal to me. And so finally, I'll leave you with this. I think I'm at time, is we're currently working on 9 initiatives, a comprehensive healing training sequence. So how does healing need to show up in policy and practice and relationship? What does that mean? Healing environments. We used to have a room where there were like chairs and lights that was really calming, that even I as a principal would sit in by myself or with young people. Community partners, we obviously know folks like UCAN and several others who are in this space with us, Organic Oneness, who are really, who know and who are connected to families, and we can operate from a space of borrowed trust to continue to support our families. Trauma-engaged teachers, and what we mean by that is, like when trauma shows up or in a classroom, how might one respond to that? Am I the cause of the trauma that's coming in my classroom? Could be. Is it in relationship to something else? Could be. But how do we respond as teachers? Support for families and caregivers. We believe that connecting people with the right resources is important. And when we say, a part of what we're saying here is connection to sort of human services, but also finding ways to push the systems on supporting families to give them what they're just doing, to give them what they're owed. Wellness for all staff. So that means if you work in a school, there's something for you. Healing center measurement. So like, how do we pay attention to the growth that are not just about academics, but are really about how do we know if people are experiencing healing, and how might we find ways to collect data for young people to tell us that. Protocols and policies, what needs to change, what needs to be built, how do we respond to crisis? And then finally, targeted interventions. What are the things we do in the moment? What are the things we do long-term? So I kind of rushed through that last part, but I hope this gives people somewhat of an indication of what we're working on in CPS with our Healing Centered framework. And you can find that on our CPS site. I don't know where, but I know it's there. I get all the documents behind the scenes, so I usually get them before they come out. So it's somewhere, and we'll find a way to get that to you. But this morning, I am in such deep gratitude and appreciation for the way each of you are coming here to get your own healing, and how you might open yourself up and share that with others. So with that, I say thank you from Chicago Public Schools and Dr. Janice Jackson. And I hope that you get all that you need during this time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Maurice, for that acknowledgement to the troubles note that are definitely faced throughout our communities, within our peers, our teammates, coworkers, etc. So thank you for that, and thank you for your work too. Very important and very real. So thank you. Now I would like to introduce Dr. Joy DeGruy. Dr. DeGruy is a nationally and internationally renowned researcher and educator. For over 2 decades, she served as an assistant professor at Portland State University School of Social Work, and now serves as president and chief executive officer of Joy DeGruy Publications Incorporation. Very big things. Earning multiple bachelor's and master's degrees throughout her field, Dr. DeGruy's research focuses on the intersection of racism, trauma, violence, and American chattel slavery. Without further ado, Dr. DeGruy.
Good morning, everyone. I am excited to be here, and this is indeed a critical time for all of us. And I'm so grateful, and I guess I'm humbled by the amount of work. I'm going to have to give a real big shout out to Saida, because Saida she's a machine. That's all I can say. She's a machine. I've never seen anybody do as much, give as much, and be willing to go to the mat for her community and for children. So I am grateful. Each of us should be, because we are living in a historical time. And a time looking back is gonna say, where were you in history? What part did you play? What side were you on? Those lines are being drawn, have been drawn, and I'm grateful to be on the side that I am on with all of you. I think that I always try to, when Saida, well, first of all, you can't say no to Saida. So whenever I'm asked to do anything as it relates to healing, which is, I believe, the purpose of my life, is to try to transmit wholeness in whatever way I can. And I think, as you all know, that when people know better, they can do better. And so my role in this is to try to share what gleanings I have had throughout my life, both personally living in this skin, as well as the scholarship and research. All of that's great, but it's about connecting hearts. I tell everyone I have a 10-week graduate level course, and I tell everyone at the end of the day, this is not just dotting the I's and crossing the T's. This is heart work. And if you're not ready to do that deep dive into heart work, which means you've got to deal with you. We are the instruments of change. It is not something that comes from a model or a specific set of tools. And those are great. And I'm going to share those with you today. But I want to be very clear that healing is much larger than this idea of just giving information. It's embodying it. It's walking your talk. It's being a model for what it is you want to see happen. So we need to take care of ourselves, those of us that are trying to do the work. So I'm going to, unless there's something else that I need to do, you know, I'm always trying to look to make certain I'm on the right page. I want to do a little heads up about what I'm going to share today. First of all, I wanted to share what I normally share. I'm not gonna do it because we're not, you know, actually, you know, I could do it because there are people here, Saida, but she didn't really give me permission to do it. I kind of want to do it. Can I do the thing I was telling you about with the people that I'm looking at right now?
Do whatever your heart desires.
Okay, good. So what I normally do, and since this first of all, today is going to focus a great deal on young people and children. Tomorrow we will move very, very deeply into adults as it relates to this work, as it relates to why it is. I mean, it's in vogue to be talking about anti-racism right now. It's in vogue to even be talking about healing. And we have to be careful that that doesn't become a cliche, right? That it doesn't become, you know, even trauma informed. That's a whole nother thing. It also, it gets wrapped up in words and not action very often. And it becomes the new buzzword that everybody, you know, we all know the right acronyms, whatever it is we're supposed to do, we try to figure that out instead of leaning into our purpose and leaning into intention about what we as individuals can do. So I am going to do a combination of things. And I decided in order to start correctly, I want to start with how I work with organizations when they have moved to implementation, when they have moved to action, not those that are still ruminating on it. Explain to me what trauma is, explain to me racism, white supremacy, not that. I'm talking about the folks that have moved on to doing. And when I work with organizations, and I'm talking about every organization I work with, whether it's schools, corporations, whether I'm working with small groups and community, I start with virtues. Let me explain to you why I start with virtues. What I know, and again, I make no bones about the fact that my folks, the folks that I'm looking at, are people of color. And my area of expertise is looking at African Americans and Latinx folks. I mean, and Indigenous people. That's where the bulk of my work has been. And while I've been in audiences that are very diverse, no doubt this one is, I want to know that I want you to know I'm going to weigh on the side of the most vulnerable. Always, always. And I never sacrifice the faith that is placed in me in front of children or community or parents or whoever it is. I never take that for granted because of that trust I hold dearly. What I know about those communities that I work with is they're very deeply embedded in spiritual practice. We understand the separation of church and state, but what that has to do with too, and I'm going to talk about that tomorrow, is axiology. What we even believe is professional. When we say the words professional, it usually centralizes itself in whiteness. And we then begin to say, well, if it's white, then it's right. And it's also professional. Even within my discipline of mental health, we've decided how I should be in the space with my client. Aside from the clinical understanding I have in terms of healing, it is how I should be. So it doesn't welcome me as an African-American woman into that space with another African-American person where we connect on another level. And sometimes that level is a spiritual level, but that's not okay. That would be a boundary problem. That would be dual relationships. That would be any number of ethical issues. So what I bring into the space is virtues. I don't bring religion. I bring me, you know, and whatever my practice is, but I bring in virtue. And usually it doesn't matter. You don't have to be religious to have virtue. Usually people don't get mad at patience, love, forgiveness, kindness, mercy. People don't tend to go, I object to that. So what I do is I bring that into the room because I know how important it is in space. Spaces where we are trying to connect with people who are looking for it somewhere. They're looking, this is why our young people go, you feel me? That's why in the culture we're saying, I'm not feeling that because I'm coming into this space and I'm wanting to feel something, right? So it's more than words. So I want to start with something I'm going to allow you all, and I know you've introduced yourselves, but you're going to kind of introduce yourself to me. Let's see how many of you do you have. We're not going to have Saida. We know what's going on with her. I'm gonna go with all the people who have kind of live pictures, because the rest of them are like, I don't know. I'm not. Yeah, I didn't get the makeup on this morning or whatever. Okay, so one.
And just know, Joy, that I know you're talking real fast, but we have interpreters that are.
Oh, I'm so sorry. And see, I didn't even have coffee.
And then also we have about 200 other people watching, and so.
Woosah. Okay. And I'm feeling some kind of way at this point in our lives, in our world. It is a pregnant time, and what we will give birth to, no one really knows. But we want to be intentional about moving that. So what I normally do, I'm trying to pace myself because I know how much time I have. Like let me just make certain of that. I have until what time, Saida? And is there a break? I just want to make sure.
So we can, if you need a break, we can take a break in between, but you have 2 hours. So
okay, perfect. So I have till
12:15, but 1:15 your time.
1:15 my time.
Yeah. So maybe use 1 or 2 people for your virtuous action.
You can't tell me what to do. You can't tell me what to do. I'm your elder. I'm gonna do it. No. Okay. So what I'm gonna do, I will ask for 2 volunteers. Okay, there's one. Ariana, did I say that right?
Yes.
Excellent. And then who's the other person? Come on. Don't be scared. Come on. Don't be feared. It's
All
really
right, Dr. DeGrew. I'll
You-
be the second person.
and Brittany. Okay, we're good. So let me explain what happens. The virtues cards, and I'll show you a picture of those. Can you see that? Virtues card. And what I do with organizations is by way of introduction to set the tone for where we want to go. We want to lift that tone. And so it's called a blind pick, a pick. So this is like, there are like 54 of them, right? 54 cards. And normally what happens if we were in a space together, someone would walk around and they would put the deck out. You would take a blind pick. Which you're going to do. You're going to do a blind pick. I'm going to pick for you, of course. It's going to be a blind pick. Or you could choose a number and I could count to that number. I mean, however, let's make it simple. I'll just do a blind pick. Trust me. I don't know all these cards. And when you pick your card, and I will go first so I can demonstrate it. You are going to say, my name is, this is my service or my work. And this virtue, I'm going to talk about what this virtue, how it speaks to me today in this moment. Does that make sense? So I'm going to demonstrate it. I'm going to do a blind pick. So the virtue that I chose, or I picked, is cooperation. So first, I'm going to read a little bit about what that means. Cooperation is working together and sharing the load. When we cooperate, we join with others to do things that cannot be done alone. We are willing to follow the rules which keep everyone safe and happy. Together, we can accomplish great things. You are practicing cooperation when you work well with others, offer your help and ideas freely, disagree peacefully and respectfully, follow the rules, ask for help when you need it, keep safe, happy in your environment. The affirmation, I am cooperative, I respect the rules, I work and play well with others, I keep myself and others safe. And that is what a person would do. And then they would say, my work is about healing. I have, been doing this work for over 30 years. I'm grateful to be here. So now, for both Ariana and Brittany, I'm going to do a blind pick for you, unless you have a number in mind that you've been thinking, it's just rolling around in your head. No? All right, so I'm going to do a blind pick. First, Ariana. Okay. Interesting. You picked orderliness. Orderliness is being neat and living with a sense of harmony. You are organized and you know where things are when you need them. Solve problems step by step instead of going in circles. Order around you creates order inside of you. It gives you peace of mind. You are practicing orderliness when you have a place to put each of your things. You put things away in the same place every time. You have a plan before you begin any job. You create a harmonious space that feels peaceful. You appreciate the beauty and order of nature. The affirmation is, I live this day with order. I do things step by step. I create beauty and harmony in my space and in my life. So tell me how this particular orderliness, this virtue speaks to you today, Ariana.
Okay, today, do I have to speak about, can I speak about my personal life as well? How it speaks to that?
How it speaks to you, period.
Oh
How it
yeah,
shows
just
up.
recently, I was during a transition. I've been in foster care and I move a lot. And I always say, like, I don't feel right unless the space that I move to, no matter where I move to, I've lived on places where I've slept with other people. I've slept on couches, but I have to make it, clean, neat, and I have to know where anything is, because I feel like I can go out into the world and do what I need to do as far as school, as far as work, as long as if I come home, there's some sense of order at home. So that definitely speaks to me, because I feel like you can't help others, as you said, unless you're helped with yourself. And it all starts at home, no matter where home is, no matter where, in my case, you have to make a home, just make sure that it has some order to it so you can do what you need to do. So.
Okay, I want to be like her when I grow up. Okay. I want to be like, I don't know, you don't even need to be here anymore, really. I mean, that was beautiful and it was rich. Do you see how that's different from saying, hello, hi, I'm here?
Yeah, for sure.
You see how it brings us in? That's the purpose there. Now for you, Brittany, I'm going to do a blind pick. You picked peacefulness. Peacefulness is being calm inside. Take time for daily reflection and gratitude. Solve conflicts. Be where everyone can win. Be a peacemaker. Peace is giving up the love of power for the power of love. Peace in the world means and begins with peace in your heart. You are practicing peacefulness when you create inner peace with daily reflection or prayer. Use peaceful language even when you are angry. Speak gently and respectfully. Avoid harming anyone. Appreciate differences. Find peaceful solutions to every problem. And the affirmation is, I am peaceful. I use peaceful words and find fair solutions when differences arise. I find my inner peace and let it carry me gently through the day. How does that speak to you today?
Well, that definitely speaks to me because I am here because I love Black people. And I am here because I understand just the power of youth voice. And I do understand it's kind of interesting that you picked peace, because I oversee the Peace Hub through UCAN, and my job is to, create spaces for us that are peaceful, because I do understand that the systems that have been created to intentionally make sure that our lives are not peaceful. So that speaks to me, because I vow to every day of my life, when there's breath in me, to get up and work for Black people, and to make sure that we can get as close as possible to just the nature of who we are, which is peaceful.
Thank you so much. So the virtues pick, and I mean, the cards cost like $10, $12. You can get them online. And Saida will know how to do it. Actually, she's going to go through it in class. So we will definitely walk through the virtues. My families use them. So for those who are with us that are parents and are in homes, our families, when I work with families in programs, in community, we will provide a set of these. And there are different kinds of virtues cards. And these are more like for a setting of community. Some are very deeply religious based, and they have scriptures from various religions. They're all different kinds. And what happens is they'll put the deck. This is what I used to do with my kids. We would pick a virtue every day before going to school, work, whatever we're going to do. And then when we came back that later on together, I would ask, do you remember your virtue and how did it speak to you today? Right? So they can be used a lot of different ways, but you see it raises the level of energy in the space. It puts us in a positive posture. And so it's not just a nice thing. It's really a tool, right? So a person, when we start presentations, people are kind of tense and, we're kind of concerned about whether everything's being met. But when you start with virtues, it releases that. And so I highly recommend that you use that in your practice, in your home, in a variety of ways. Again, it's not religious, it's virtue. It's saying how I want to walk through the world and be in harmony with humanity and with nature and with the world. And again, it also allows people, particularly African-American people that lean into this, to find a space where they feel like they're welcome, that begins to speak to their cultural practice, right? Without it becoming judgmental or dogmatic. It is what it is, and I get to speak to you in a way that uplifts me and you. And it also puts me in a very humble posture of learning, all of those things. So now I'm ready. Throughout this, I'm going to be interjecting stories, tools, some thick information, just thick for a little while. It's going to be, thick. That's all I can tell you. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to attempt to do it again. Do I have power to do that? Everyone has given me the power to do that. Okay, let's see. All right. And I'm going to, okay, we don't need this. Let's get that out of the way. Let's move this. My computer went bonkers last night. I just watched it. I was hysterical, but it's back today because I gave it some harsh words. So tell me you can see that. Can you see that? Someone has to confirm.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Very good. I just want to make sure everything is working as it's supposed to. All right. Healing and thriving in a time of crisis, healing ourselves today to save the future, coping with two pandemics, COVID and white supremacy. And, we will touch very lightly on the more obvious issue of white supremacy, which is the foundation of so many of the problems. But first, someone mentioned, about this whole idea of how, we have to be able to be ourselves, to be the best you, which means that we're living and we are showing up authentically, and that we are moving with a sense of integrity, and we are purposeful and intentional, and recognize we have efficacy, that we can affect the space around us. So part of healing in my mind and in my practice has to do with that: authenticity, integrity, and efficacy. I start with the slide now. I actually added it recently because I think Isabel Wilkerson, who wrote The Origins of Our Discontent, The Origins of Our Discontent, and also wrote The Warmth of Other Suns, brilliant, amazing scholar. I just so love all of us that are doing what we need to do in our respective lanes. I start here because I think it's important for us to kind of come into a joint agreement about who and what we are and why we are at this moment. We in the developed world are like homeowners who inherited a house on a piece of land that is beautiful on the outside, but whose soil is unstable loam and rock. heaving and contracting over generations, cracks patched, but the deeper ruptures waved away for decades, centuries even. Many people may rightly say, I had nothing to do with how this all started. I have nothing to do with the sins of the past. My ancestors never attacked indigenous people, never owned slaves. And yes, not one of us was here when this house was built. Our immediate ancestors may have had nothing to do with, but here we are, the current occupants of a property with stress cracks and bowed walls and fissures built into the foundation. We are the heirs to whatever is right or wrong with it. We did not erect the uneven pillars or joists, but they are ours to deal with now. And any further deterioration is in fact on our hands. Unaddressed, the ruptures and diagonal cracks will not fix themselves. The toxins will not go away, but rather will spread, leach, and mutate as they already have. When people live in an old house, they come to adjust to the idiosyncrasies and outright dangers skulking in an old structure. They put buckets under a wet ceiling, prop up groaning floors, learn to step over that rotting wood tread in the staircase. The awkward becomes acceptable, and the unacceptable becomes merely inconvenient. Live with it long enough, and the unthinkable becomes normal. Exposed over the generations, we learn to believe that the incomprehensible is the way that life is supposed to be. I start with this slide because I have never, I think, in my career heard someone articulate so clearly our times, so clearly our responsibility. And it doesn't allow people to, say, oh, it has nothing to do with me. To say, oh, this is not me, it's not mine. It's ours, this inherited house. It is America. And it is something that we need to deal with, whether we need to help repair it. Perhaps we have to tear it down and build another house. But one thing's for sure, we cannot ignore it. So, healing and striving. I actually, this is the only picture I have in this particular presentation, but I remember when I was going through, actually putting together another PowerPoint, and I came across Hitler's Nazi March of 1939, which is eerie. And then I see the White Supremacist March of 2017, Charlottesville, and then the state capitol. It's eerily similar. And it says to me that we cannot rest on our laurels, that we cannot pretend that we do not see what we see. For whatever reason, people are afraid and pathologically afraid, so much so that we stand in harm's way if we ignore this house. I wanted to talk a little bit about Black families and COVID. So that one of the pandemics, of course, is COVID. And my interest and focus is in the African-American experience. Black Americans are receiving COVID vaccinations at dramatically lower rates than white Americans. In the first weeks of the chaotic rollout, according to an analysis, about 3% of Americans have received at least one dose of a coronavirus vaccine. And of course, we're beyond that now. But in 16 states that released data by race, white residents were being vaccinated at significantly higher rates than Black residents, according to the analysis, in many cases 2 to 3 times higher. In the most dramatic case, 1.2% of white Pennsylvanians had been vaccinated as of January, compared with 0.3% of Black Pennsylvanians. The vast majority of the initial round of vaccines has gone to healthcare workers and staffers on the front lines of the pandemic, a workforce that's typically racially diverse, made up of physicians, hospital, cafeteria workers, nurses, and janitorial staffers. If the rollout were reaching people of all races equally, the shares of people vaccinated whose race is known should loosely align with the demographics of healthcare workers. But in every state, African Americans were significantly underrepresented among people vaccinated so far. Access issues, mistrust, rooted in structural racism appear to be the major factors leaving Black healthcare workers behind in the quest to vaccinate the nation. The unbalanced uptake among what might seem like a relatively easy to vaccinate workforce doesn't bode well for the rest of the country's dispersed population. Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans are dying from COVID at nearly 3 times the rate of white Americans, according to a Center for Disease Control and Prevention analysis. And non-Hispanic, Black, and Asian healthcare workers are more likely to contract COVID and to die from it than white workers. My concern now is if we don't vaccinate the population that's highest risk, we're going to see even more disproportionate deaths in Black and brown communities. A UCLA physician and health equity researcher states that it breaks my heart. Dr. Tazen Bell, a University of Virginia Health Systems physician who serves on its vaccination distribution committee, stressed that the hesitancy among some Blacks about getting vaccinated is not monolithic. Nurses he spoke with were concerned it could damage their fertility, while a Black coworker asked him about the safety of the Moderna vaccine since it was the company's first such product on the market. Some floated conspiracy theories, while other Black coworkers just wanted to talk to someone they trust, like Bell, who is also Black. And what we're looking at there, it speaks to that historical piece that I often mention. And that is the fear that Black people have. And it's a legitimate fear. You know, am I being placed in harm's way? Given the history of flawed medical experimentation on Black people, there's a great deal of fear existing right now. And that's not, again, it's not a monolith, but it's something that we have to appreciate shows up when we start talking about things like, well, healing, right? If we don't consider the context and the historical context that got us here, then we can't solve that problem. But it is a problem of distrust. It is a problem of historical harm. So those of us that are trying to promote this notion of healing need to present this as a reality and help people wherever they are along the way. So some of the things that I'm going to be talking about today is social learning, epigenetics, and how it impacts our lives. So first of all, let me start with social learning theory. Social learning theory combines cognitive learning theory, which posits that learning is influenced by psychological factors, and behavioral learning theory, which assumes that learning is based on responses to environmental stimuli. So let me try to put that in, bite size. We learn how we want to move and how we are supposed to move through the world by those examples that are being modeled to us in our environment. So that's pretty much what that's saying, is that, we are learning, but we're learning based on what we are experiencing in our environments. Psychologist Albert Bandura integrated these two theories in an approach called social learning theory and identified 4 requirements for learning. And this becomes really important as I start talking more specifically about epigenetics, healing, and trauma. It requires observation, which is environmental, retention, which is cognitive, reproduction, which is also cognitive, and motivation, which is both. This becomes really important because we learn from the people in our environment. We don't question that normally. I mean, you grow up, you learn how to, wash dishes or how to cook or how to greet people by the big people in your world that modeled that behavior for you. And sometimes very specifically taught you how and what to do in certain circumstances. So it's not something that anybody's surprising. We all know that, we learn from the people in our environment. But what that also speaks to is what have been the experiences of the people in our environment? Is what they are modeling for us something that we should take on, reflect, and begin to pass on to those in our environment, our own children, friends, loved ones? Do we ever question what that is that we are learning? The average person does not. But I would submit to you that I think we all have to do that. And God bless my parents. I love my parents. They're the reason why I'm here. I could not do what I'm doing without them. But there were things that they learned that weren't correct. There were things that they learned that were fragments of trauma. There were things that they learned that worked for them, but do not work for me. And I did not pass along to my children. Now, a good deal of what they taught me, I was able to utilize, but we have to begin to be intentional. We need to be purposeful about how we do what we do. So when we start talking about epigenetics, and this will get thick later, but I wanted to kind of bring out some of the studies. And I spoke with you, some of you anyway, when I was there before, about this notion of epigenetics. This is not a new field. It's, you know, something that's been explored for a long time, a very long time. But only recently did we learn some of the things that we now know about how the environment actually shape and impact our genes, and more importantly, the expression of our genes. Behavior can be affected by events in previous generations, which have been passed on through a form of genetic memory, animal and human studies suggest. A body of research shows that your DNA may contain a biological memory of the stress your grandparents endured. Can trauma, stress, and even nightmares be passed down from generation to generation? Scientists say yes. The findings provide evidence of transgenerational inheritance, that the environment can affect an individual's genetics, which can in turn be passed on. As previously explained, significant life-threatening experiences alter genetic coding, and this is heritable in subsequent generations. Therefore, it stands to reason that a child conceived post-trauma will acquire this adaptive genetic information. So why am I talking about this? We're talking about healing. And when Saida asked me to focus on what I wanted to talk about and what that topic would be, I immediately thought to myself that we need to heal now if we want to save future generations. Let me say that again. We need to heal now if we want to save future generations. And it centers around these two things here: social learning and epigenetics. Consider that if we have within our bodies, and I don't know, and nobody here could raise your hand and tell me whether you have evidence of your gene expressions being impacted by trauma. We don't know. We don't know. But I want to play on the safe side of things. When I consider 339 years of American chattel slavery, followed by Jim Crow, followed by lynchings, thousands of lynchings, followed by redlining, followed by urban renewal, gentrification, and racial terrorism. Then I'm going to make an assumption that not all of us, but perhaps a considerable number of us, have inherited some trauma. Does that make sense? That we might have inherited some of these markers on our genes. And I don't want to pass those genes on to my children. The good news is we can change that trajectory. Just as we can be impacted by trauma, we can be impacted by health and healing and strength. But we have to be intentional. And that's what today's discussion is about, how to be intentional about these things. So when we talk about epigenetics and trauma, we're talking about how the genes are expressing themselves. And what we used to believe, what was believed was that, you know, you have only a certain set of genes, and you have this DNA, and you just have a certain amount of it. But we're learning more, and we're learning that we can turn some of those genes on or off. Epigenetics gives us the ability to move beyond what we have inherited, right? So I wouldn't even talk about this if this was something that was so dismal we can't do anything about it. No. Trauma alters our gene expression, specifically, now listen to this carefully, the prevention of inflammation that leads to forms of sickness like diabetes, cancer, heart disease, and others that people are beginning to look at. This is where it gets a little thick. Telomeres. I want you to consider that telomeres, think about a jump rope. So you know how on a jump rope you have handles, right? So telomeres are like those handles that hold the DNA together, that protect our genes, that double helix. It keeps it in place, allows it to unwind and reconform and replicate. It allows those things to happen. So telomeres are something that decrease with age and even more with trauma. And with fewer telomeres to protect the gene cells, they cannot replicate and they die. And so you die. So this is really important information. And, you know, again, I didn't get it in my education, my textbooks, but there's something called telomerase. So telomerase are like enzymes that can repair and maintain telomeres. So let me back up for a minute and talk to you about how important these telomeres are. They did some studies recently on Black men, and they had the level of telomeres, the number and the expression of telomeres that were equated with elderly white women with cancer. That's how bad they looked, those telomeres, as a result of trauma and stress. So we want to optimize telomerase through mindfulness. And this is what's so amazing, what's so powerful about the mind. And please understand that the mind is not just your brain. It is that connection between your brain and your body and other things in your environment. So we want to optimize telomerase through mindfulness, and this is how you do it, practicing being totally present in the moments of our lives, because you see, trauma will distract us from that. And I'm going to get really specific into that. I'm telling you all this on the front end. Please, you could very happily do the deep dive. You can very much be encouraged to go in and look at these things in depth. I want to give you some real practical guidelines as we move forward. We can optimize those that telomerase not only through being present, but integrating our experiences, through engaging with each other, through counseling, therapy, meditation, prayer. All of these can change the trajectories, are you following me, of those genes that we can turn on and off, that are wrapped in that holding us together as human beings. So these are things, that's a thick part. Now I'm going to give you practical examples of it so you can understand what I'm talking about. I want to deal with this whole notion of children, okay? One of the things that I started to realize, and you're going to see this, I'm going to give you some visuals as well, but I want to talk about children, which is basically, and Saida knows very well, the focus of my life at this point. I am putting the rest of my life into one, preventing the harm of our children on every level, so that they can start their lives and move through their lives in the very best way that they can. I'm going to share this piece with you, and then I'm going to unpack it for you and give you some practical examples of it. The remarkable growth and development of the neural cortex during the earliest years of life can only occur when a child feels emotionally secure in warm, stable relationships. When young children are stressed, fearful, or insecure, the limbic emotional area of the brain actually prevents learning from occurring. I'm going to say that again. When young children are stressed, fearful, or insecure, the limbic emotional area of the brain actually prevents learning from occurring. So what we're saying here, when children are extremely stressed, they can't think clearly. Whenever a child feels stressed or frightened, the structure in the limbic system responds by secreting cortisol into the bloodstream. Now, this cortisol, by the way, comes part and parcel with traumatic experience, okay? Cortisol is a naturally occurring chemical in our body, okay? And it's there, it has a real positive function. We all have to have cortisol in order to function at all in life, to be able to meet the stressors, normal stressors of life. This circulates through the body and washes over the neural cortex, where it prevents neural connections from being formed and strengthened. So we're now talking about stress having a biological impact on neural connections in the brain. Even if excellent opportunities for stimulation and learning are present in the environment, children who are stressed cannot take advantage of them to develop their brains. Unable to use the higher thinking parts of the brain, children revert to functioning in the lower area of the brain stem and use the survival mechanisms of fight or flight to cope with their situation. It is only when the period of stress ends and children again feel secure that learning and higher level thought processes can resume. The relationship between fear, cortisol, and learning exists throughout life. Even adults with mature coping skills cannot learn or even think clearly when under too much stress. If children live under stressful conditions for significant periods of time, in the first 2 years, the results are disastrous. For it is during this time that the emotional center of the brain is being refined and its entire developmental course is altered when it experiences frequent high levels of stress and the corresponding high levels of cortisol. I'm going to end with this last quote, which is really important. Repeated exposure to a great deal of cortisol programs the child's brain to expect, like, and even seek situations that will lead to the release of cortisol. This happens in much the same way that children who live in a home where food is highly salted learn to prefer it that way. It is quite possible that the tremendous increase in seemingly random acts of violence in society is related to the increased number of children responding to high levels of early stress and fear by living in their brain stems. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment because I want to talk to you about this. Now, again, that's the thickest part. I mean, we'll go through a couple of charts, but that is as thick as it's going to get. But I want to operationalize this so you can know what I'm talking about. First of all, I want to say this about Black children. There was something that I remember as a child. I mean, there are things that I remember. And you probably remember as well. I remember being so small, I'm looking up at people's hands hanging down. So I was a little person. I had to be, I don't know, 3, 4, I was little. And I could read people's behavior. I didn't even have the words articulated, but I could read it. And Black children can read you. Okay, let me just tell you, and I used to have to talk to teachers about this and talk to folks that try to talk to our kids any kind of way. I said, that child will read you. They may not even be able to verbalize what they are thinking and feeling, but they do that. And I'm going to show you a developmental chart before white children. Matter of fact, before any children. They usually can assess these things, they have an ability to read behavior before they are supposed to developmentally be able to. I don't know why that is, but I think it's inherent. I don't think it's as a result of trauma. I think it's a trait of being African, because nobody ever taught you how to read people. Nobody said, now this is what I want you to do. There's sometimes you come home and somebody will walk up on you with a little kid. You see little kids, they'll eyeball you, get a side eye. I hear what you're saying, but I don't believe anything you're saying because I'm reading you. Are you following me? Okay, so that becomes really important as we look forward and we talk about healing, and particularly children and Black children. And so I started to take a look at this, and I remember this real story, real true story. Because remember, let me give you an example of cortisol in action. Wherever any of you are right now in your space, someone comes through the door with a gun right now. Come through the door with a gun. Let me tell you what happens in your body. What's not going to happen is you're not going to go, there seems to be someone in my room with a gun. I wonder what I should do. None of that's going to happen because that part of your brain is not even accessible to you at that point. Cortisol has flooded your brain. The adrenaline has raised, and you're going to fight, flight, or freeze. Survival pops in. Here's what happens. We talk to you later. You're outside. You're actually outside the house. Police have come, neighbors are talking to you, and they say, what happened? And you'll go, all I can remember is the gun. I don't even remember how I got outside. because that part of your brain is not accessible. You follow me? So the stress of that moment, the fight or flight that shows up, gets all of the energy into your body to save your life. Are you with me? It's not something you sit around and. So here's what happens when a person is having high stress. The cortisol is released. They don't have access to reason. I want you to remember that. They don't have access to reason, because all during that time, you're in fight or flight mode. Your brain is doing a whole nother thing. Now we're going all the way back. Remember, we talked about stress and trauma. I believe, now I don't just believe, it's a fact. And of course, if you've seen the film, if you haven't, please, as an institution, get Unnatural Causes. It really breaks this down better than I can. And the scientists that are doing the research are phenomenal. And I had the opportunity to work with at least one of them. But one of the things that stood out to me was, I'm going, okay, cortisol. Now, more stress, more cortisol. I'm doing the math on Joy. Joy got some cortisol. I think that matter of fact, I think people of color have higher levels of cortisol. This is just my theory. I'm not, somebody else would have to test it out. And in some, in this, in the film that I'm talking about, Unnatural Causes, they talk about the fact that Black men, they talk about Black men, they talk about men in general, they talk about Black men, and they talk about racism. Because racism produces a stress that nobody measures. We have the usual suspects, your job, children, health, these are stressors. But how about being Black? How about being Black as a stressor? Right? Because in other words, like my dad used to say, if a white man has a cold, a Black man has pneumonia. We always have all of these layers, but we've normalized the stress. We've just basically normalized stress. People, I remember, even in my graduate studies, I was, they told me, now, Joy, you're not going to be able to work and go to school. This is a rigorous, program. And, it's just not possible. Matter of fact, every other student, I was the only Black student at the time working on a PhD, and they were saying all of them were in therapy. Every single student, because, the stress and the pressures of the class. I'm like, what? And of course, because, I don't want to get in trouble, I said, oh, of course, I won't be working. I work full time. Do you hear me? I didn't have, how was I going to not work? I got to keep the lights on. And I'm looking at these people going, what's wrong with you? You know what I mean? I'm working full time, raising a family, and I'm a full-time student. And they were going to stress and knitting and doing stuff, and having to, go to little, aromatherapy because they were in school. They didn't even have to work. Half of them were like, I didn't have anything else to do. My dad always wanted me to have a doctorate. My husband, works. I must stay at home. So, and you got to go to therapy for classes. Anyway, I digress. So Black people, Latinx folks, people of color, I think we have functioned with high levels of cortisol. So now let me give you a picture of it. I'm gonna give you a real incident where this happens. And I'm gonna go back to that quote and read the final piece of it in terms of how this shows up. I'm in a classroom, middle school. I'm teaching middle school at the time. And I noticed that one of the students, Amina, has, not the real name of the student, but Amina has her books in the aisle. So everybody's kind of coming. I said, Amina, excuse me, but can you move your books out of the, why are you talking to me? Why are you always on me? Everybody's always on me. She kicks her chair and I'm like, right, first of all, so what has happened? She's triggered the what? She's triggered the cortisol. And you've watched this happen, and I know you have in Chicago, where you'll see a group of friends. They're just hanging out, but it starts revving up. And you can feel it. You can feel it. They're going to trigger it. They'll start fighting. These are friends, right? Because what happens in your body when that cortisol, in order for it to come down, once you've triggered it, fight or flight, it's got to subside. Are you following me? It's got to peak in order for it to subside. I'm going to get back to Amina. I'm walking into a movie theater. I see, this is in Portland. God bless me. I'm walking into a theater. And there's a group of Black kids, Black boys, principally, maybe from maybe 10 or 11 to maybe 16. And they're talking and they're doing what kids do, you know, they're loud, but everyone around them is white. And they're like clutching their purses and, you know, whispering. And the young men, the boys, the children are looking and they're noticing that everyone's looking at them. And they're just being kids. So I'm feeling it. They're nervous. They're stressed out. They already have high levels of cortisol. And now you have this tension. You've got to trigger it so it can come down. You follow me? So what I do, I'm watching this and I can feel it. Not only am I watching the experience of how they're being viewed and treated. This is not a rational things in terms of you going from point A to point B. I know my community. I know my kids. So I walk right into the middle of them. I go, what movie are you going to see? I'm getting ready to go see this. Anybody seen that? They go, oh, I saw it. I liked it. I liked it. Well, what are you guys going to see? And all of a sudden, what have I done? I've redirected their brains. And the next thing they know, all of it subsides and they walk in the theater together because I knew what was getting ready to happen. I could feel it. And I knew that they weren't even aware of what was going on. Go back to Amina. Amina has just yelled at me, screamed, stood up and kicked her chair. Okay, that's what she did because I said, what did I say? Could you please move your books? That's what I said. So I know, first of all, that what I just said in no way should have produced this response from Amina. Now, trust me, I grew up in South Central. I got some cortisol floating around in me. But I understand that about me. I'm a big grown up. And not only that, I've done a deep dive in terms of this. And I've talked about how we can calm and being mindful. And what I needed to do was be present in that space. Remember, we got to be present, the notion of being here in the moment at the time in your life, not running from it. So I'm going to get all the way present with Amina, because at this point, she's triggered the what? Cortisol, which means she does not have access to what? Reason. So now I can try to step into my European paradigm of hierarchy. I am the teacher. So therefore I am on the top dichotomously, which is another form of thinking, European systems thinking, either or. So if I'm at the top and you're the student, where are you? You're at the bottom. Nobody Black is, I don't care how many stripes you have, you are never going to be better than me. Okay, I don't care how you, from 4 years old, don't put your finger in my face, don't talk crazy to me. Because in African-American culture, we're all equals, no matter how much rank you have. But if I'm using a European system of hierarchy, I'm going to assert my what? My authority. So now I can keep walking up on Amina and go, listen, young lady, this is you will not, and what's going to happen? She might take me out, okay? Because she's not operating with reason. I know that. So now I have to figure out how to de-escalate this, right? Here's what I do. I step back. I say, Amina, I'm not mad at you. I'm not attacking you. Look at me. I'm not mad at you, okay? All I wanted was for you to move your books because I didn't want anyone to fall or get hurt. But I'm not mad, okay? So if you want to step out for a moment, that's all right. But I just need you to know I would never attack you. So what am I doing? I'm doing two things. One, I'm modeling the behavior I want from her. Social learning, right? I'm modeling that behavior. She's watching me because I know that cortisol is peaking. And if I kept talking at the same tone and I start moving towards her, it's going to escalate, right? Now, it's not rational. I'm going to explain to you, this is triggered. And people who have lived with lots of stress, you've met people, adults, that always got drama or are creating it. In other words, they've normalized their lives through drama all the time. And part of that has to do with that almost an addiction to the cortisol. Now, understand, I know Amina doesn't have a clue about what's going on in her body, but I know what's going on in her body, and I have a responsibility. So I slow my speech, I quiet myself, I give her space. I don't walk up, I walk back. Because I need her to access what? Reason. And until she can do that, there's no point in me continuing on. 9 times out of 10, I'm not exaggerating. I will see Amina later. She may even go walk out the class. And I keep it moving. Next time she'll go, Miss Joy, I'm so sorry. I don't know why. I'm just so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I said, it's okay. It's all right. So remember, with high stress, high cortisol programs the brain to like, expect, and trigger cortisol. Now, real case study. I'm dealing with adjudicated youth. I'm dealing with Jerome, not the real name. Jerome is 15, he's really 15, but he's big for his age. He's a big 15, but he's sweet. He's a good kid. He's a good student. He's in a mall, walking around the mall, and he's big. He's the 15-year-old walking around the mall, and every single time he stops, security, hey, move along, stop loitering, right? And it didn't matter what he did. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He was just a big black kid walking around in the mall. And the security, usually someone short with some authority, right, decided to go, I'll show you. I'm going to, push my authority around or push you around my authority. So after a while, he gets tired and he literally sits down. Next thing you know, several security guards come to him. Okay, young man, you need to leave the mall. And they make the mistake of putting their hands on it. Okay, they made that mistake and it triggered cortisol. And he was throwing them off of him. 15 years old, took them all out, right? Not attacking, defending himself. Well, he caught an assault charge. So he ended up in a program that I coach and consult with. And I'm looking at Jerome, and I don't want him to end up in the adult system. And I know Jerome doesn't know what's going on. I know he doesn't. So I sit down with him. I said, okay. I said, Jerome, let's say that I have a little box right here. It's a little rectangular box. And right in the middle is a red button. And if you push that red button, the rockets are going to go off. Rockets are going to be released. I said, once I push that button, can I get those rockets back? He says, no, I said, so how do we stop the rockets? He said, don't push that button. I said, exactly. I said, you have a button inside of you. It's called cortisol. The same article that I just spoke about, I gave him the whole article and we walked through it. I said, now that button is cortisol. Tell me, Jerome, you think you have a lot of cortisol maybe going on with you? Because, now he understands how it shows up. And he goes, oh, yeah, I think I got a lot of cortisol. I said, how about in your family? You think, oh, God, everybody in my family got cortisol, right? I said, okay, a lot of cortisol. So now we have language. Are you following me? So I say to him, tell me, Jerome, what happens just before the rockets go off, just before you get to that place that you did in the mall? I don't know, Miss Joy. I said, oh, yes, you do. I want you to stop and think about what goes on in your body to indicate to you, buttons getting ready to get pushed. He goes, oh, yeah. My hands start sweating. Sometimes my hands start sweating. And my heart will start beating sometimes. I can feel I said, and what is that telling you? Oh, it's telling me that that button's getting right. I said, okay. So we went a whole year. I worked with him one-on-one for a whole year. I worked with Jerome. Jerome was a really good student. Jerome had all of these things going for him. I knew that I needed to do something more than what everyone in his world told him. You need to get a hold of yourself. You need to get some self-control. You need to grow up. You need to be more mature. You think that's going to walk down the cortisol? You think that's going to help him? Or is it going to actually produce more stress because he doesn't know how? So once Jerome knew what was going on in his body, he comes in my office one day. He says, Miss Joy, guess what happened today? I said, what happened? He said, I was going into the cafeteria. He's in high school. He said, I'm going into the cafeteria and I see my boys, and they're throwing around this box, a styrofoam box, and hitting people in the head with it, bouncing it around, the cafeteria. And he says, and I looked at it, I turned around and I walked out. That was huge. That was huge. He could anticipate the behavior that was going to trigger the cortisol. You following me? So now Jerome has a tool. He understands what's going on in his body, and I'm not beating him up by saying, get it together. You should know better. You can. How could he? And this is what I'm saying to those of you that are listening. When we know better, we can do better. And if you don't think Jerome took that information back home to his parents, if you don't think in my parents group, I didn't share the same information, because we all need it. But don't tell me to just, get yourself together, pull it together. I don't know how to pull it together. You understand what I'm saying? And so I believe that we can have tools that can help people navigate these very difficult spaces. Let me go back. Now, the other thing I want to find out, Saida, is I'm sure there are probably questions. I don't do that. I don't even know how to get the thing. It gets overwhelming for me. So I don't know how or when you want to do that towards the end, maybe.
Yeah, we could go through Earl, Brittany, and I and look to see what.
Yeah, find something. And again, it's so weird. This is a weird platform. You're getting a lot of information thrown a lot at you, but I also know you have questions, and I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to be kind of moving through however I can, but I'm going to try to give some time to that. So I'm going to share the screen again. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So I talked to you about human development, right? This is one of the older charts. I think there are better ones now. But this one, Erikson's psychosocial stages, if you are in mental health or social work or psychology, you're going to run into Erikson inevitably. And he talks about, and I want you to look at this. I want everyone to look at this. And I want you to find yourself based on how old you are. And let me explain these stages, right? So these are what certain stages of development that most Eric that call psychosocial stages. I don't necessarily like the language he uses here, but can't be mad at him. He used what he believed. So psychosocial stage, and he's basically talking about this cognitive, psychological development. Infancy, birth to 18 months, infancy, right? And they tell you that the conflict, what I call is the task of that period of development is to develop trust versus mistrust, okay? A favorable outcome for a birth to 18-month-old is that they have hope, they can tolerate frustration, they learn to delay gratification. An unfavorable outcome of birth to 18 months is suspicion and withdrawal. So that becomes a red flag if that's what you're seeing. Now I want you to pay close attention to this. So you have 18 months to 3 years. This is early childhood. The task of development for that stage is developing autonomy, this sense that I can do things on my own versus a feeling of shame and doubt, right? I doubt myself. That's the conflict. The favorable outcome to that particular stage is having a sense of will and purpose, self-control, self-esteem. The unfavorable outcome is compulsion and impulsivity. Now, I know why I'm telling you this. You are even actually thinking about people you know and children, right? Then you have 3 to 6 year olds. This is play age, initiative versus guilt, feeling like, I can do things. I have this desire. Versus I feel guilty. I don't feel like I can do things. I feel bad about myself. And this is really important. I want you to pay attention, 3 to 6. Favorable, you have a sense of purpose. You enjoy your accomplishments. The unfavorable is inhibition. 6 to 11, I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm actually going to stop at 6 to 11. 6 to 11 years is middle childhood. Industry versus inferiority. That is the task. The favorable is feeling competent. The unfavorable is inadequacy and a feeling of inferiority. I'm not going to go through all of these because I really don't have time. And I really want to focus on those early years. Okay. Now I'm going to show you another chart. And this becomes very important as it relates to Black children. And I want you to remember yourself in that chart, right? I hope I'm, not a crotchety old person. You know, I'm trying to lean into the wisdom. So this is Piaget's stages of cognitive development, right? So let me kind of give you actually probably know about Piaget. Piaget was the one who, for example, let me give you a question that you can ask. And I remember doing this with my kids. So my sons were upset with their little cousin, right? She was 4. And they said, you know, she is just so manipulative and she's spoiled. And she, you know, they were telling me all of this stuff that she was, right? Because they were mad at their little 4-year-old and they're like 10, right? And I'm going, first of all, she can't do all that. She, you know, she is not, you know, a spy, you know, she's not, you know, sitting or plotting. She's 4. Yes, she is. You don't know. I said, okay, I'm going to do a little experiment. So I say to her, I say, Ayana, do you have a brother? And she goes, yes. Now she's 4. Yes. What's his name? Omar. Okay, great. Does Omar have a sister? Nope. Right. So the sons are standing there, right? They're looking like, wait a minute, what did she just say? I said, let's do it again. I said, do you have a brother? Yes. What's his name? Omar. How old is he? 10. Does Omar have a sister? No. Right. And it has to do with the hardwiring, cognitive development. You know, you can't be there. It's somewhere in the hardwiring, your ability to get there. Now, by the time she's 5, she figures that out. But they couldn't believe it. I did a number of different things with her, card things, trying to do, you know, will you match the card? All of those stuff. I did all that. Another thing, at that age, 3-4-year-olds, you go, okay, if you give them 5 pennies, you say, okay, can you count to 5? Yes. I said, how many pennies are these? 5. I said, now here over here, I give them 5 elephants. I say, are they the same? No. Why aren't they the same? There are more elephants. I said, okay, let's count them, right? But because they are unable to differentiate the size. In other words, they cannot see that things have maintained their continuity. So if you pour water, for example, into a short beaker, a short round one, and you then pour that into a long, tall one, the same amount of water, you can show it to them. They'll say there's more in the tall one. Are you following me? So this is one of those things where conservation of matter is what we're talking about, that it conserves itself. Same thing with clay, a ball of clay. You roll it up and then you roll it out, it's bigger, it's more there. So these become very important. So I'm going to go through these, and in red, I want you to pay attention to those. Sensory motor is infancy, 0 to 2 years old. And that is, you know, they exist separate from the objects around them. These are learning that you get. They can cause things to happen, and that things continue to exist even when they can't see them. Like, for example, when you're playing with an infant and you're trying to get them to not grab something, and you just take the thing and move it and they forget about it, right? And they just keep going. But then there's a point where they look for it when you take it away from them. Right. So this has to do with that, looking at that cognitive learning. Then you have pre-operational learning. And this is through the use of symbols, symbolic play. They can use words or pictures to represent objects. They have egocentric thinking, however. Egocentric thinking, the assumption that everyone shares their same perception, little understanding of time sequences, do not understand the concept of the conservation of matter. That is what goes on in that pre-operational kind of stage. Then you have something called concrete operation. Now remember, Black kids can read you, because we're looking at pre-operational is 2 to 7. And I'm telling you that 4- and 5-year-old Black children can read your behavior. They can read what's going on, and they can make the assumptions that happen in concrete operations. So concrete operations, now this becomes really important as it relates to our children and our youth specifically, learning through concepts and relationships and logical inferences. During this stage of development, children begin to understand social inferences, the act of making assumptions about what another person is feeling, thinking, and intending. They're saying this is between 7 and 11 years old. And I'm telling you that 4- to 5-year-old Black children can do that. Okay, really important to understand this about our children. Now look at this next piece. social relationships, understanding fairness, loyalty, respect for authority, concepts of legality and justice, social regulations, understanding social rules and conventions. This is where we lose our children, right here. Because they're saying to us, why should I do what you want me to do? You're not fair and just to me. You're not fair and just to my dad. You're not fair to just to the people in my community. You're not fair and just to Black people. Stay with me. They're critically aware of justice and fairness. Now look at this picture. This just occurred April 12th, 2021. You probably heard about this right here in crazy old Georgia. This is a picture. Now what I want you to look at is the posture of the Black children. This is a situation that showed up where this is a preschool. So these are little bitty ones now. Remember, these are little bitty ones. So what happened is this mother, they have these video cams so that all the parents can check in on the little activities that their kids are doing. So this Black family, a Black mother and father, decided to check in on their little boy. And they noticed, this is a snapshot, it went viral, that all the white children had plates of food in front of them. And none of the Black children had plates of food. Now, I want to put this in the this is one of those things where, and again, Saida is very aware because she does work with me, that I am calling for the vetting of all teachers, the vetting of anyone we put in front of our children. Now, of course, all this went viral. The woman there, resigned. The owner of the daycare said something about, oh, maybe it has to do with eating allergies. Of course, all of that got shut down. But remember what I told you about our children. Think about this whole idea of guilt and fear, what they internalize. Now, both sets of children are learning something here. White children, these are all innocent little children. But I understand human development. I specifically understand what happens with Black children because they're reading this behavior, but they don't understand it. So what are they going to internalize? Guilt, fear. These children didn't even go home and tell their parents because, you see, they didn't have the facility to do that. These are big people. And these white children don't know why, but somehow I'm special now. And I know for certain I'm more special than them. Are you understanding what I'm saying here? And we have to recognize how harmful this is. I'm so happy that that parent saw this, but did they take the next step, which is to heal these children, all of them? That I don't know that happened, and it disturbs me to this day. But then I had the second question in my mind. I'm gonna stop sharing because I want to have another kind of conversation with you. My second question was, what else are they doing when no one's watching? What else are they saying during the little lesson plan? What kind of body language? Are you hearing what I'm saying? We are placing our children in the presence of people that are doing them harm, right? I have a presentation I do, which is called Who's Under the Sheets Now? Who's under the sheets? Well, I'm going to tell you, doctors, teachers, attorneys, policemen, that's who's under the sheets. And what we have done and we continue to do is place our, and then you have a teacher that goes, I'm not racist. Well, that remains to be seen. Let's go on and check and see. And let's be clear that when I start talking about these kinds of teachers, sometimes they look like me. And they have been indoctrinated in that developmental chart of inferiority versus superiority. Are you hearing me? And you got to go too. Because everybody needs to be vetted if you're going to get put in front of children. But I want you to understand the harm. You have children that are hypersensitive, more sensitive than the white children, able to read behavior. And what do they internalize? What's wrong? What did I do? What did I do that I don't get my food first? Their little brains are trying to figure that out. And we have to step in and provide safety for them. This is just one preschool in Georgia. But my high school guidance counselor told me, this is the person that's supposed to help me prepare for college. She told me, I was 16 or 17 or something. She says, first of all, she would take a deep breath whenever I had to meet with her. Middle-aged white woman. She would take my little chart and look at it and open my little file and shake her head and go, Joy, you're just not college material. You're not, you needn't even try, because you're not college material. So of course, I have 4 degrees and 3 advanced degrees, but what bothered me, and to this day it bothers me, that I didn't go back. And I did go back to the school, but she was gone. This is a woman who was tenured, working with Black people at Crenshaw High School that hated Black people. Now, I knew I was going to college because my family, they laughed out loud. Of course you're going to college. And of course I did. But how many did she hurt? How many years did this woman spend discouraging Black students? Now, I understand my grades weren't in question. I graduated in January, early, completed all those credits. But she looked in my face and told me I wasn't college material. And thank God I had a family and friends that were not going to let that stand with me and let it seep through the epidermis for me to believe it. And I was 16. So what I'm saying to you is this information I'm sharing with you, it's just not stuff. This needs to be operationalized. This needs to be, every parent needs to know, right? And they need to know how to advocate for their children and how to bring those little Black children back together and talk about crazy Sandy in the class. And then sometimes people are adults and they say things and they're wrong. And to talk about how we right this. How do we do corrective, restorative? What do we do? Because see, no one talked about that in the media. They just tore the signs off and shut down. Didn't even shut down the daycare center. Actually, they didn't get shut down. The actual program daycare center, I think Kids Are Kids, whatever it was, they just took their name off it and cut ties. You see what I'm saying? And this is where systemic and structural change has to happen. And thank God this family looked in, because now we knew something we didn't know before, but we don't know all the other ugly things that happened to those children. And you could see it in their bodies, couldn't you? They were like stunned, and they didn't have words to defend themselves. And so this is something that, when I look at development, I'm always thinking about that, because that's your first introduction into school. And no wonder so many kids are so pensive and so fearful. And when you're fearful, it stops your ability to learn or think. So we have to put these things together when we start talking about healing. It means advocacy. It means justice. And let me say something a bit about justice. Long before all this was going on, I've been working with kids forever. I taught elementary, middle, high school, college, in any warm body you put in front of me. I will teach you if you're standing still. I was called, this was during Black History Month. And I'm not your Negro. I'm not there to be your token right on Martin Luther King. I have a dream. I don't do that. But a really good friend of mine who worked on the coast of Oregon, really good guy. He was, I think he was a pastor. He was a pastor, and he had a camp every summer. My kids participated in a camp. He says, Joy, I'm just wondering if you would come for and do a talk to our youth. Now, the one thing I will do is talk to young people. I'm not, big people. Yeah, you ought to know better. But I will work with kids. That's the one thing where you'll get me out, because I'm going to do something. They say, and we really want them to understand justice, and particularly being a drum major for justice and being activist. He was telling me all this about the youth. So I got my little stuff together and I drove 2 hours to the coast of Oregon to speak to youth. Had my computer, had my little, I didn't actually, I had a PowerPoint, but that wasn't what I was going to do. I was going to show some things up on the screen. I was all prepared. And it was a whole room full of 3 to 6 year olds, 3 to 6 year olds. And I was like, what? I mean, he said, our youth. And he neglected to say that it was 3 to 6 year olds. So now I'm in a room, all of them are, sitting on the rug, picking their nose and, I'm like, okay, so let me just put this stuff away. And I said to them, and I want to do an experiment right now. If I were to ask you in this room, how many of you that are watching can draw, right? Right. Well, I don't know. Some of you, I don't know. Okay. If I was in a classroom of 3 to 6 year olds and I said, who in here can draw? Every hand would go up. Every hand would go up. And you hesitate because you've now thought, well, I don't draw very well. And I don't know how to do eyes. So I don't know what you came up with. But if you're 3 to 6, yeah, I can draw. Yeah, I can draw. And they believe in themselves. And something happens that makes them stop. And so, because I didn't ask you if you could draw well, I asked you if you could draw. But let's look at what happens in this classroom with these kids. This was the most amazing moment because I was sweating bullets. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was there. Hey, everything had to be extemporaneous right there, just showing up. And I said, who wants to do a skit? I do. Everybody said, oh, great. We're going to do a skit. And we're going to be talking about, I give them a little social justice, Martin Luther King. Great. Okay. So I take 2 little girls, and the majority of these kids are white. You have a spattering of few kids of color because, it's the coast of Oregon. So I'm like, and my kids, I always have my kids with me. They're always participating. I make them participate. I make them engage. And they love being at the coast, first of all. So 2 little girls come up and they're probably around, I want to say maybe 5 or 6, these girls. And I said, we're going to do a little skit. I'm going to be the teacher. You're going to be the student. Okay. So I have a desk and my back is to them, but their 2 desks are facing the kids. So both of them are sitting at desks facing the kids that are sitting on the floor. One of them has a crayon and the other one has a toy. So what happens is my back is to them. The one that has the crayon gets up and leaves. And the little girl who has the toy goes over and takes the crayon. So when the little girl gets back, she realizes that the other little girl took her crayon. So she comes to me and she goes, teacher. So I turn around and I walk over to them and she goes, she took my crayon. And so I asked the little girl, I said, did you take her crayon? And she goes, yes. I said, say you're sorry. She goes, I'm sorry. And so then I turn around and I sit down back at the desk and the kids go back and sit down. And so some of the little ones in the audience are going, wait, and their hands are waving and waving. I'm going, what's wrong? They're waving there. I said, okay, I'll tell you what, we'll do it again. So I come out and I go, put them both in front. I ask her, did you take the crayon? She goes, yes. I said, then say you're sorry. And she said, I'm sorry. And that's it. I said, what's the problem? And a little bitty one, 3-year-old raised her hand. I said, what's the problem? She goes, she got to get back that crayon. She got to get back the crayon. This can't, saying you're sorry, this is not going to be okay with me till she gives back the crayon. That's a 3-year-old that understands justice. And then I could talk about, I said, it wouldn't be just, would it? That is what Martin Luther King worked for, giving back the crayon. And so I'm illustrating this true real life experience to share with you how intuitive children are about justice. Now I want you to think back to that classroom and what gets seared into their little spirits, gets seared into their minds and their hearts. And by the time they get to school, the damage has been done. Do you see? And so we have to know better and hold people accountable. Even a 3-year-old knows that. Shame on us if we don't. All right. I see a hand. Is it? No, there's no, that's something else. Sorry. Let me go back to sharing. And again, I'm going to try to
And also, Joy, if you want to take a break and time.
Well, that might be good because it's just a little, how about, how much time you think? A 10-minute?
Well, sure, you make the call.
No, I know. See, I know it's a lot. For me, I do this stuff a lot, so I don't realize how much is going on. So let's just give people 10 minutes.
Okay, and then we have, so we have an hour left. And so, yeah, 10 minutes, and then you have 50 minutes.
Yeah, okay, that works. I will, let me stop sharing. And I will go and get myself something, not coffee though. Get something.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being with us. We were going to take a 10-minute break and come back. You don't have to log out, but you can stay on. But we will take a 10-minute break and come back at exactly 11:17. So we look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Hi, my name is Jahari Stampley, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you to UCAN and Jazz Institute for having me, and I hope you enjoy.
Hope you guys enjoyed the break. We will be with you in another minute. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. So hope everyone enjoyed the music. Is my video on? Can you see me? Can you see me? Mute. My thing. Can you hear me?
Greetings, everybody. Sorry for the delay. We are actually in the process of engaging Dr. DeGroot back again after the break.
Can you hear me now?
She had some minor technical difficulties, so she will be coming back shortly. Myself, Brittany, and Saida will come and just engage you guys on a few housekeeping things. And we're going to invite the beautiful voice that you heard, Ari, coming back to give her thoughts about some of the housekeeping stuff when we get to the breakout session. So for now, I wanted to let some of you guys know that some of you actually, I think some of your colleagues, for those who are already here, had trouble logging into the actual website itself. So what we're going to show you now is an easier way so you can let your colleagues know how to log in for those who do want to join us. Saida, we can see you, and go ahead and start speaking. If you can.
Everyone's saying that they can hear me.
Saida's having a few issues with the hearing as well.
Brittany, can you hear me?
Yeah, Ari is actually prepared to come in and go over what the afternoon is going to look like for us as we wait for Dr. DeGroot to rejoin this call. So we're going to have breakout rooms this afternoon, and Ari will let us know what that looks like and what that will entail.
Right. So, hi, you guys. So we're waiting for Dr. DeGroot to return. We will break for lunch at 12:15, but you will have the option then to return and choose from 6 breakout sessions 4 times throughout the afternoon. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. You go to the website and you click on the pictures to enter the rooms based off the pictures that you see. And then you will meet us back in the main room to close out the day after that.
Thank you so much, Ari. And just another reminder for folks who have signed up for CEUs, please be sure to log your name into every session of the conference so that we can ensure that you've completed the day. And then we'll be mailing you in those certificates shortly after the conference.
Yeah, and another thing, thanks for everyone. I felt so much love. Yes, we could see you, we could hear you. Another thing is there's a survey link on the website. And so if you can, just click on that. It's just to give us to hear some of your thoughts. It's just really easy, clickable things. And then at the end, that's where you can write whatever it is that you feel you learned, your feedback. What are you going to share with someone else? What is your aha moment? What did Dr. DeGroot share or Marie Sweeney this morning that really, resonated or taught you something new? So please feel free to leave your comments in there, and also in the chat, because we are going to store these and use them for our records and grant writing and all that stuff. So the more you write of what your aha moments were, what you can take with you in your place of work, or new lessons with your children or your family members, or were they even awakening moments for yourself? When she was talking about the counselor, I had the same experience. My counselor steered me towards, a community college, which is great. I loved it, and I would rather have stayed there instead of going on to a 4-year college and then my master's. But what stories did she tell that also helped you heal a little bit? Hearing that from her, I felt like, that I wasn't the only one. It is a structural thing. That wasn't my fault. If I studied harder, it wouldn't have made a difference, because things are ingrained in the structure, and that's what we're trying to get away from. So please leave comments in the chat, and then also the survey. And then we have the questions in the Q&A, where it says Q&A on the bottom. Put your questions there, because those are easier to read than just the comments in the chat. So leave comments in the chat, your aha moments, go on the survey, and then your questions in the Q&A.
Brittany, do we have a question about CEUs? If you can answer that, that would be great.
I can answer that. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the chat so that I can see that question. But then also, I just got a question in for folks who are trickling back in. They would like for Ari and I to go over what the afternoon will look like just one more time, if that's okay with Ari.
Yeah, that's fine. So for people who just coming back in, we're currently just waiting on Dr. DeGrew. She will return. I was just giving a little information about breaking at lunch. We will break for lunch, then at 12:15, return to the call if you can, and you will have the option to choose from 6 breakout sessions 4 times throughout the afternoon during that portion of the conference. In order to go to it, you will go to the website, click the pictures to enter the rooms, and then meet us back in the main room afterwards to close out the day.
Yeah, so maybe Earl, there you go. We're all on the same page for sure. Yeah, so just scroll down from where you signed in on the website, you scroll down and then hour by hour, those are your choices. And then you just hit the join button and that should take you to the room that you want to go to. And then that's tomorrow's stuff. So tomorrow the website will look different. It will have all the updated things. So today it's just focused on today's breakout sessions.
Thank you, Saida. And to answer the question about the CEU, just to provide more clarity on that. So you guys are already logged into the conference. What I would like for you guys to do for CEUs is we're going to break out into breakout rooms or sessions in the afternoon. So when we do that, whatever breakout session you enter, if you can just enter your name and that you applied for CEUs in the chat of those breakout rooms, then that would be really helpful. And then when we come back from the breakout rooms, back to the main stage, which is what we see now, if you can also put in that chat at that time, your name and that you've applied for CEUs. So that's what I mean by whenever there's a break or a transition and we're into something new, a new session, if you can just add your name, and it may seem repetitive, so we do apologize, but this is the best way that we can track your attendance for the CEUs. If you guys need more clarity, please chat me, let me know, but we're just asking for you to enter your full name into the chat whenever there's a transition during the conference.
So Joy said she's still trying. There's a storm where she's at and all of the electricity is out on her block. So she's trying to figure out how to get on.
Yeah, so Saida, that's fine. And I believe that John might be on the call. If it's appropriate for us to go ahead and play the youth video, I think we might want to do that. And so as we can see how awesome Ari is, you know, being a young person and kind of help guiding this conference along, I definitely wanted to, or we wanted to highlight the brilliance, the excellence that young people possess. And we also want to highlight that there's really not a space at the table for young people. We want them to be seen as the table, as the leaders, because a lot of these issues impact them. You'll see how resilient a lot of the young people that we are blessed to encounter on a day-to-day are. But I think it's appropriate for us to go ahead and play the youth voice clip. And during this video, young people are just going to talk to you about some of the day-to-day challenges that they have and that they experience, growth and overcoming obstacles. This video is called "What Does Healing Look Like for Me?" And John, if you are prepared to play the video, please feel free to do so now.
Yeah. She said it's still out. And so what we'll do is we'll close out with the video and then we'll break for lunch. So everyone will have more time. As soon as we see this great video, it's just a couple minutes long, then we'll go to lunch.
Saida, John is pulling it up now. Give him a couple minutes.
Perfect. And so just to talk about tomorrow, feel free to invite others. The link on Eventbrite is still live, and it's preferred for people to sign up on Eventbrite, even though you do have the password for the workshop, just so that we have an ongoing place of where all the information is of our attendees. And we can communicate easy that way of everyone who's in the conference. But I know how that extra step can prevent people from getting in. So if you must, not the preferred method, but if you must just give people the link to the website and the password, we'd rather have people be a part of it than any barriers stopping them from being here. So preferred, yes, we have their information, but overall, them being a part of this is the higher goal here. So after the breakout sessions, if we can all just come together to close out the afternoon, it won't take long, but just to kind of, you know, do a run through of tomorrow and any technical things that we should be aware of. Let us know that that's the time to help us understand what your experience was like. So please join us at the end after your breakout sessions. It's just like 10 minutes.
What does healing look like for you?
My name is Mary Lucius. I'm 18. I live in Lawndale. And what healing means to me is my baby, because I'm pregnant now. Because in August, in the middle of August, I lost a child. And then recently, in the beginning of October, I found out I was pregnant. So it's like the doctor told me I wasn't supposed to have kids. So she's my miracle baby. So that's my healing.
My name is Lamaria, everybody call me DJ. I live in North Lawndale, west side of Chicago. I'm from here, but I moved to Florida when I was 12 years old after my brother died. And then I came back when I was 18. Played football in Florida. And healing actually means to me to just move on when you have a stop in your life. Just go over the stop. Don't let nothing hold you back. That's why I don't like it. And my husband is my girlfriend. She's my backbone.
Hi, my name's Corey. I'm 17. I live in North Lawndale. Healing means to me is like picking up and just starting over. Because in November I lost my baby, and in December me and my boyfriend picked up and moved to Chicago. And ever since then, like it's still hard because obviously I lost my baby, but I'm starting to like get better because I'm not around where I was when everything happened with the baby, so I'm just getting better.
All right, my name is Lamarion Wright. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I'm 17. I live in North Lawndale. One thing I know that made me heal is my mama because of a heart problem. So, you know, that's what I got love for in this piece. A lot. So, you know, getting stuff off your chest, that's what made me heal too. And then vent to people. That's what I like.
Hi, my name is Marsha. I live in the Lawndale area. I'm 16 years old. And healing means to me is my son and my daughter. Because I was fighting a lot, getting in trouble, a lot of stuff. I was bad, just put it like that. But when I hear my son them, I got better. Like I focused on school, a lot of stuff. So yeah, that's my healing.
Hi, my name is Renai, and I am an 8th grader at Village Leadership Academy. I am one of the organizers from the Change the Name campaign. We successfully changed the name from Stephen Douglas Park to Frederick and Anna Douglas Park. Healing to me looks like removing the names of oppressors out of predominantly Black and brown communities. Healing to me looks like change.
Great. And so this concludes our morning portion. Ariana, you want to take us away into lunch?
Yes, I'm gonna take you guys away to lunch. Also, I wanted to repeat, just in case for anyone who missed about the breakout room, so you can know what to do. Once again, we're going to break out for lunch. We're going to return here at 12:15 if you can. You will have the option to choose from the 6 breakout sessions 4 times throughout this afternoon. And as John and Saida showed on screen before, you can go to the website, click the pictures to decide which breakout room you'd like to participate in, speak in. And as I said before, make sure you guys remember that it was always nice to share, but not forced to. And yeah, that's it. See you guys after the lunch break.
Great. Bye.